Hey, so this is my famous quotes w- website that displays famous quotes. So when my website was designed, the main implementations from start to finish were separated into three milestones. The first milestone handles the register login features. The second milestone handles the main core purpose of the website, and the third milestone mainly deals with admin features and data association. Because all so for part one of this video, I will be displaying and explaining the register login feature as a normal user. Because all users, either admin or standard, will need to go through this process in order to either create an account or log into the website. So I'll be going over to the register form here, and here the user will be able to register a new account. So first I'll be showing the validation for the email, username, password, and confirm fields. So we can say the username will be Sai Chandra 123, and password we can say NJIT student, NJIT student. This validation, I'll be removing the email to show that the email validation says that the email has to be required. So here I'll be removing the username while keeping the email, password, and confirm. So here it says, please fill out this field. This means that the username field cannot be left empty. So I'll be changing this to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this password and the confirm password are not the same. So this should prevent, as you can see, the passwords must match and the field and the form is reset. So I'll be showing the field with valid data, and then I'll press submit to show that it has all the valid data. Password, NJT student. And as you can see, it says the form has been successfully registered. I'll be going over to the login page. So if I go back to the register, I'll attempt to put in the same in information, and it should tell me that I cannot because the account has already been registered. Although the password, I can input anything because the password is not necessarily unique, so I can have the same password for like multiple different accounts. Will tell me that the chosen email is not available because it's already been registered into the database of users. The username, I'll put Sai Chandra 123 again, and it should tell me that it's not valid. As you can see, it says chosen username is not available, which means that the username that I had put in before is all ready taken. So so I don't need to put in um, new information and register a new account because we already done that. So I'll be going over to the login page and I'll be logging in, or like first showing the login validation before I actually log in to the website. So this is the email to password validation. I'll be putting a bunch of random numbers and I'll log in. It'll say invalid password because that's not the password associated with the account. Now I'll be actually logging into the account and I'll be showing that you can either log in with the email or the username. Okay, you can log in with that, and I'll show that you can log in with the username as well. And as you can see, this is the home page or landing page of the website. So when the user logs in, a session variable is saved for their account. So this means that even if they go to like the home page or the profile page or different pages, they can their information is still saved into the entire website until they log out. So here you can see a message. It says "Welcome Sidechandra 123." It displays the username and a welcome page, welcome message when the user lands to the homepage upon login. So this quote viewer I'll be explaining in milestone two, which is in part two of this video. So for now, I'll be going over to the logout feed, the section. So when I log out, it'll say successfully logged out. So when this happens, the current session I had when I was on the main website when I logged in, that session variable gets deleted. So I can't use the back button because it'll say you must be logged in to view this page. All right, I'll be logging in again to go to the other tabs. Okay. So the user, as you can see, there's a home page, profile, and these the favorites, quotes, and quotes, and I'll be explaining in part two. So let's go over to the profile. So in the profile, you can see that the session variables has inputted the email and you has pre-filled the email and username into the email and username fields. Although the password is not filled in because it's an intentional security measure to make sure that the current password is not filled in case any unauthorized users accesses this user's account. So the user will be able to edit their profile. They can change the email or the username and the passwords. For the email and username validation, it's the same for the login and register pages. It has to be in this format and and then the email location, and then the email and username have to be unique, so they can't put in information that's already existing in the database that's not associated to their account. So for this part, I'll be changing the password. So my current password is NGIT student, and I'll be putting in some random letters. It does say that. Oh, I think I messed up. Okay, so I basically just inputted the current password and then like a random new password when initially I should have just switched that around. So the profile was saved with the new password. Okay, so I'll be logging out, and this is part one. Hello, this is part two of my famous quotes website demo. So this part will be explaining milestone two, which deals with the core purpose of the website regarding quote creation, viewing quotes, and editing slash deleting quotes. For this part, I will be showing the website view of a standard user and an admin user, because the user will be accessing a very small part of the website, and the admin user will be accessing everything in the website, including the edit slash delete handling of the quotes. So first, I'll be logging in as standard user. Okay. So I will be showing the quotes table from the database. So this is the quotes table. The basic columns for this table is the ID, which is auto incremented, the created, which stores when the record was made, and the modified column, which stores when the record was modified. So for the quotes table, the quotes author are the main parts of the record. So for the quotes, it stores the quote, and the author, it stores the author. So the quotes column, the each quote has to be unique, but not for the author, because as you can see, multiple authors can say the same thing as shown in records two and three. Okay, so in the profile is where the quote and author, the user generated quotes data is created. So I'll be updating the profile, and as you can see, even though it says profile saved, it also says quote or author fields cannot be empty, which means that the validation for the email to the new password is completely different from the validation for the quote and author. So even though it says profile saved, the quote and author fields are not submitted. So for this, I'll be showing the validation for the quote and author fields. As you notice, it does not submit because the quote or author fields cannot be empty, and the same thing goes vice versa. It just does not work. So if I enter a quote, let's say I'll just say SS and SS for author. Say the quote field must contain at least three characters. If I say I'll just power and I do S here. Oh shoot. Um, Somehow I guess that added the quote because the I guess the way the validation was created was that it accepts even a single letter as like a author name. Okay, so I'll be submitting an actual quote this time. Okay, be updating the profile. It will say quote added successfully, and as you can see in hold on, it'll show this error here. For some reason, it somehow added a single letter as the author, but you'll also see below it the quote and the author name. Okay, so I'll be going over to the API generated page called quote gen. So this page can be accessed by either admin or user. So when we go to this page, it shows the previous API generated record because the information it displays the last API generated record that was inserted into the database. So I press generate API quote. It'll say API data added successfully and the new new quote, new quote ID, quote author API generated yes, and the created modified. So if I refresh this table, it'll show the new API generated quote at the bottom and the and the number that indicates that this record was created by an API. So in the API call, the quotes right the quotes table. The purpose of the API column is to denote whether the record is created by an API or not. So the one indicates that these records are created by an API, and the ones that are null show that they were user created. So you'll be able to see more of that in the quotes table. So each check mark it replaces. So for starters, each column field shows the API quotes author and then the details, edit, and delete options. The API indicates that the places where there's a check mark that this record is API generated. So for this page, both the standard user and the admin have access to this page. So for the filter sort, it the quote search filters the quote column and the author search filters the author column. So if I type the and A, search. It'll filter the results for both the quote and author for the letter A in author and the word the in quotes. So for the limit, it shows the number of records in the database or table. And as you can see, I can't go past that, past the number of records in 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 the table, but I can go below it. So I'll be showing about five, and it'll show five. Although there's an issue with the records limit. So after the search button is clicked, and there were 20, I think, six records, I can now go past that somehow. I'm not exactly sure why that occurs, but that always occurs after I press the search button. So in the code for data list, that primarily happens in the input field. So the minimum is one record, and the maximum is the total amount of records. So the value also shows the total amount of records as well. But for some reason, after the form is submitted, this value does not work anymore, and neither does the maximum. I'm not exactly sure why this occurs, and in order to, I guess, provide like a minor fix to this issue, I included a refresh list. So if this wasn't here and the user were to click this, as you can see the URL, it doesn't fix the issue. So the user, the only way they would be able to fix it if they pressed quotes again. But I put this button here so it would make it easier for the user to reset the page back to the default and make this thing to work again. So first, I'll be showing the details of this first record. So in the record details, it shows the same amount of information as the API gen details. So hold on. This is long again. Think I got I think I got logged out because this session doesn't stay for it stays for a very limited period of time. Okay, quotes, details, and as you can see, the nav bar is fi- fixed again. So this record details, it captures the quote ID up here, and it shows the full records for that quote ID. So if I were to put in, let's say, 50, then it would tell me record not found and redirect me back to the quotes list. Even though the edit and delete buttons are only for the admin, the user can see them as well. But if I were to go to the edit button, it would say you don't have permission to view this page. And same thing for the delete button as well. So I will be now logging in as the admin. So for the admin, I'll be showing the edit and delete features. Okay, so I'll be going to the same. If I go to the edit page, you can see that the quote and the author are auto-filled into the fields. So if I put in an invalid ID here, let's say 50 again, it'll say invalid quote ID and redirect me back to the quotes list. So if I were to put in, let's say, invalid information, let's say if I deleted the author, it'll say quote and or author fields must not be empty, and the previous information is reinserted into the edit field. If I edit it and save and go to back to quotes list, you'll see that the change was made here at at the first quote. So if I go to the delete page, let's say for, let's do this one. If I were to put an invalid ID, it would again redirect me back to the quotes list. So the reason why I'm not deleting the API quote data is because it's retrieved from a different website, and there's a monthly quota for the number of quotes I can retrieve from the API. So the admin can delete an API quote, but it's usually advised against. So for this case, I will delete an API quote to prove that. Oh, that's weird. Anyways, I'll delete the first one. Press. So I decided that I was going to delete the last record because I believe there's an issue with the way the data list processes each record. So I think the issue is that instead of, so because the record, the ID is auto incremented. If I were to delete, let's say 23 here, then the record would go 22 and then 24, and then 23 would just be gone. So all the records below 24, all the new added records that go from 24, 25, 26 will not be in order with the ones before 23. So it'll go from 22, 24, 25, 26. And because of that, all the records below that, they cannot be accessed via the details or the edit or the delete. So with the way the table is created, the only way, well, the way I referenced each record was by the ID, which causes this error. So I fixed it now. I changed the ID and made everything go in numerical order. So for this part, I'll be deleting the last record to show that the deletion process works for the record. So when I go to delete and I press confirm delete, it'll say quote record successfully deleted, and it'll not only redirect me back to the quotes list, but it'll also refresh the page, and you'll see that the quote no longer exists here. So how the API data is handled is that the API data is pulled from the API website based on the API key and endpoint URL, which returns one famous quote per call. In the rare chance of the API giving duplicate data, I included a validation that checks if the existing quote exists in the database, and if it does, then it flashes this quote already exists in the database. Try again. So all the user has to do is just press the generate API quote again until it returns a unique result. So for the issue with the quotes list, I believe. Hold on. So I'm not exactly sure where this issue occurs, but I know that the delete details it retrieves the quote ID from the U URL, but for some reason it specifies that there's an invalid request quote ID not specified when any record inside the list is deleted. So that concludes part two of the web, website demo. Okay, this is part three, the last part of my famous quotes website demo. This part will be explaining milestone three, which deals with admin features and user to data association. For this part, I will be logging in as a standard user and an admin user to show both the basic user features and the admin features. So I'll be logging in as. Okay, so this is the home page that you've probably seen from part one of the video. So here it displays the quote, and it shows a button to go to the previous quote, next quote, and to save the quote. So so when you press the save quote, it says quote successfully saved. If you notice, you can't go back to the previous page because this quote is the beginning of the first quote in the table. But I can go to the next one. I'll click save again, and it saves. I can click save, and it saves. But if I try to attempt to save the same quote, it will say you have already saved this quote. This essentially prevents the user from duplicating the same quote to the same user, but other users can save the quote to their account as well, because in the favorites list, each each quote is saved to that specific user, which I will show in the saved quotes table. So as you can see, user 25, which was the Skyrim, has the ID of 25 and saved the first, second, and third quote. So in the favorites page, it displays the records associated with the user and the total records shown on the list, which is defaulted to 10, but the user can go up or down. So I'll be I'll be showing the details of the first quote. So the if you notice that the details shows the edit and delete buttons, but this details page is the default view of all the details links in in the web page. So if I press go back, it'll return me back to the previous page. I can also go to the delete page as a user because this delete page compared to the other ones, it deletes this record from this user's favorite list. If I delete the record, it'll say that deleted record is gone and it does not show up in the favorites list. But I can go back and save it again and it'll say quote saved successfully, and then if I try again it'll say it's already inside the table. So here I can delete basically any quote here. So if I delete the center one, say quote record successfully deleted, and I can also delete this one as well. So this issue, so I had this issue in the date in the quotes list because the way the quotes list was designed was that it only had the ID column. So the only way I could only way I could reference the record ID was by the default ID, which was auto incremented and would like change if I like deleted this one. Everything else would increment in this or order and become inaccessible in the data list because the data list would read from here and then assume that there's no record after this one. So that was fixed in the favorites list because now I can reference either the user ID or the quote ID. But for the favorites list, it mainly references the user ID. So that way I can delete any quote without the error from happening. So if you notice on the bottom, there's a refresh list and delete all saved quotes. So when I press that, it says I don't have permission to view this page because this button is only reserved for the admin. So here it shows the total number of records associated with the user and the total record shown. If I go back to the home page and save these three quotes, I can scroll down to search, and it'll still show the total number of records associated with the user, and this one will show the total records shown on the list. So if I were to type in a random key term, it will say no matches found. So it's basically the same filter sort function logic as the other lists. At the very bottom of the page is a refresh list button. Now, there aren't any issues on this page, but I added the refresh button as an easy way to refresh and any filter sorts applied to the list. So that concludes the standard user view. I will now log in into the admin view and show how the admin can delete or make user to data associations. Before I get into the admin specific pages, I would like to show the favorites page for the user from the admin view. If I go to the favorites view, you can see all the data associated with this user. So the button does in fact achieve the job. It deletes all the data associated with the user, but it only does the job partially. I say this because I was not able to figure out how to delete the data specific to the user when I made this page, which I figured out later, but did not have time and enough time to fix. So I'll be showing the script for the page. So in the script, you'll notice that the code basically says to truncate the table. This was the fastest solution I could find for the implementation. So I used truncate table to delete all user associations, but unfortunately, it also deletes all the user data in the saved quotes ta- table. So if I were to close this, you'll notice that all the date, date, data is gone. Now I will go over to the user association page. Hold on. So in the so I basically just went back to the homepage and favorited a bunch of quotes to fill the table again. So in the user association page, it shows the column of data associated with the user in terms of creating the quote. So the it shows that the API created the quotes, and it shows that test 123 created these quotes. The column next to the author shows the number of users associated with this with these quotes. So if I log out and log back into the user account, I would save the first, second, and the third quotes. Logged out, go back to the admin account. It should show that there are two users associated with the first, second, and third records, but not the rest. So these records are associated with a logged in user, and these three records are associated with the logged in user and the user I logged into before to save these three quotes. The next two columns show the details and delete page. So because this is a admin page, I can delete this record from the saved quotes for all users. Although if the admin wanted to delete the record forever, they would need to go into the actual quotes list to delete it from there, because the quotes list is the master database of this page. So if they were to delete it from there first instead of here, then this quote would would be be gone as well, because this table is essentially a copy of the quotes table. So the editing of the quotes table takes um priority over the saved quotes table. If I go to the details, it'll show me the default view of the records back. It'll return me back to user associations. And if I press delete here, it'll delete that record for all users. But it will still, the quote details will still exist on on the website, because it's not deleted for the quotes table. The heading of the page, the heading of the page shows the total number of records associated with the user, which the reason why the total number of records associated with the user is lower than the records shown is because I got confused at that time with what it was supposed to show. So this number is actually showing the number of records saved by the user, which is not displayed in all user associations. So I'll show that from. So if you notice here, shows all the records associated with the 24 ID, which for some reason says it's more than 12, which I'm not exactly sure. I think there's something wrong with the database syncing, which did not occur from localhost, but it is occurring here. So if you can see the name search text field here, but I was unable to implement the username filter, because at the time when I was implementing it, the username search would break the whole page whenever the search button was pressed, even when the username field was empty. I decided that it would be better to delete the username search functionality. I left the search bar to come back and fix it, but I could not due to the limited time I had. So as I said before, with the issue with this button is that this essentially still redirects the user to this page, which truncates the table instead of deleting it for a specific user. The filter sort still uses the same functionality as the quotes list page. So I put and then search. It'll show all the quotes that have the word "the" inside of it, or specifically the string of the uh, pattern of characters. So we see "the" here and uh, elsewhere. So I'll be showing the non-user uh, association page. This page primarily displays all the API quotes on the website. So in this page, you'll notice that there's only a details page instead of a delete page. As I said before, the API generated quotes are valuable and should not be deleted at any cost unless it is necessary. But this primarily affects this non-user associations page primarily accesses the quotes from the quotes table. The heading of the page shows a total number of items not associated to anyone. This one, this header shows a total number of records shown on the page. So if I were to go lower, it would show seven records. Although for this header, the number shows the total number of API records instead of the records not associated to anyone, because I was confused at that time about what information it was supposed to show. So instead, I showed the total number of API records. For the filter sort, the record number is slightly implemented differently here, which caused a major bug in scrolling through the numbers. If I refresh the page and I were to go down to 15 and I press this, it'll skip five records and go straight to 10 instead. So this is the API data list. So this was primarily implemented for this input tag, which echoes the count of the API generated quotes. This was implemented in how the form is submitted. So the quotes data is basically just filters the quotes search button, search field. But I think I'm not exactly sure like why the record number filtering is causing issues, but I think it has to do with this block of code, which filters through an array of quotes data and returns the quotes with the API gen being one. So this issue skips over large amounts of records and for some reason somehow bypasses the maximum and minimum values I set. So the maximum total quotes is the same number as a non-user associated quotes, which is 17. My plan for why I designed it this way was to not only prevent the user from going past the number of records in the table, but also for the value of the text field to match the number of records shown on the tape, ta- shown on the table, which is shown here. So basically, it does do that. So if I type in A and then search, it, it will do that. But when I edit this part specifically, let's say two, it'll jump straight to zero, which somehow like bypasses the mi- mi- minimum which I set here for the input. I will now show the entity association page. So this page shows the username search and the entity search, which takes in a quote ID. So for the entities search field, I intentionally decided that it would not search based on a partial match, but instead an exact match. Because I believe that searching for a quote or author would be tedious and require the admin to enter a specific arrangement of characters in order to get a specific match. I decided that was not a user friendly way to implement the feature for my website. So instead, I decided that the admin would search for one quote by the quote ID, although the username search goes by the partial match. So if I type in quote three and I type in test, it'll show me all the usernames that have the word test in inside the username, which is four of them. So if I press test, so this is test 123. It's I'm not selecting it because it's already associated with the third quote. If I press associate, we'll say the user and quote association was successful, which will be reflected in here. So the first user, third and fourth have the third quote associated with them in their favorites list. Due to a time constraint, I was unable to implement the feature that dissociates the users with the quote when the list is displayed again. Type in test and then three. I did the same thing. It will most likely duplicate the result in the database, or it will not because I think in my previous implementation, I made the code that where the database accessing code where it wouldn't duplicate the same record for the same user more than once. Before I end the demo, I would like to show the create list assign roles that I missed from part one. So this is the create role and the description. So if I put in the role of man, manager, I create the role. It'll say the role was successfully created. I go to list role and it'll show man manager in the list of roles that I can also toggle, which updates my role. If I go to assign roles, I can assign the roles for any of the users. But for some reason, it does not display the list of roles to assign from here. I think it's because I disabled it. But if I go to assign roles, it should show it now. If I type the user account that I used to test the basic user features, should display now, and I can give them admin or supervisor or manager rights, and I toggle it, and now it's saved. Okay, this concludes my website demo. Thank you.